A messenger leaves the Persian capital at Susa. 9 days later, he reaches the Mediterranean coast. That's 1,500 miles. On foot, that journey takes 90 days. The Persians did it in 9. No engines, no telegraph, no wheels turning faster than a horse can run, just a road and a system built around it. 5 centuries later, on the other side of the Mediterranean, a Roman courier does something similar. Rome to the edge of Gaul in under a week. Same problem, different answer. Here's the machine nobody built on purpose that decided which empires survived and which ones collapsed the moment their armies looked away. This isn't really a story about Rome or Persia. It's a story about roads, a problem every large civilization since has had to solve, and most got wrong. Because a road isn't just dirt and stone. A road is a promise that your king's word reaches you before winter does, a promise that grain from 3 provinces over can save you when your own harvest fails. Break that promise, and the empire behind it breaks too. Start with Persia. In 480 BC, the historian Herodotus described a system called the angareion, a relay of mounted riders stationed at intervals along the royal road, each one handing off a message to a fresh rider on a fresh horse. Herodotus compared it to a torch relay at a Greek festival. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness stops these couriers, he wrote. Words a modern postal service would later borrow almost exactly. The royal road itself ran nearly 1,600 miles from Sardis in the west to Susa in the east. Along it, the Persians built waystations roughly every 25 miles, a day's ride apart. Each one held fresh horses, food, and a bed. Think about what that solves. A rider doesn't need to be tireless, he only needs to be fast for one leg of a much longer race. But here's what the road couldn't fix. It was a single spine. Cut it in one place, and everything east of the cut goes dark. When Alexander's army crossed into Persian territory a century and a half later, they didn't need to conquer the whole empire at once. They needed to control the road. Control the road, and the messages stop. Stop the messages. And a king 3 provinces away has no idea his army just lost. Now, Rome. Rome didn't build one road. It built a network, eventually more than 250,000 miles of it, with over 50,000 miles paved in stone. The Via Appia started in 312 BC, connected Rome to the south. Layers of gravel, sand, and fitted stone cambered, so rain ran off the sides instead of pooling in the middle. Classicist Ray Lawrence, who spent years mapping Roman Italy's roads, has argued that this network didn't just follow Roman expansion, it drove it. Where the road went, tax collection followed. Where tax collection followed, soldiers could be paid. And where soldiers could be paid, the empire held. The real innovation wasn't the pavement. It was the cursus publicus, the imperial courier and transport service, formalized under Augustus. Waystations called mansionaries every 25 or so miles, mutationes for changing horses in between. A courier carrying an imperial seal could commandeer a fresh horse at any station on the network, no questions asked. Rome to Byzantium, over 1,300 miles, in about 6 days for someone moving with real urgency. Who actually ran this? Not senators, not emperors. A layer of people history barely bothered to name. The mansionarii, who managed each way station, feeding riders, stabling horses, keeping records of who passed through and when. Road surveyors called mensors, who staked out the straightest possible line between 2 points, sometimes tunneling through hills rather than routing around them. Milestone carvers, whose stone markers, some still standing today near Rome, told a soldier exactly how far he'd walked and exactly how far he had left. These were the people an empire actually depended on, not the men on coins. And here's the vulnerability neither empire could engineer away. A road that lets your army move fast also lets an enemy army move fast, straight at your capital. A road that carries tax revenue in also carries plague, famine reports, and rebellion out. The Persian royal road helped Alexander conquer Persia in roughly a decade, using the very infrastructure the Persians built to hold their empire together. Rome's road network, centuries later, became the fastest way for Germanic armies to reach Italy once the frontier legions stopped holding the line. What built the empire also mapped its own destruction. So what actually decided the outcome? Rome's roads or Persia's. Both systems solve the same core problem. Distance kills empires faster than enemies do. Persia solved it with speed, one road built for messages that couldn't wait. Rome solved it with density, a mesh so thick that no single break could isolate any one part of the empire for long. When a Persian road failed, the empire lost its nervous system all at once. When a Roman road failed, traffic simply rerouted through the next town over. That's the real answer. Rome's network didn't just move faster, it failed slower. And in an empire, the ability to fail slowly, one town at a time instead of one catastrophe at a time, is worth more than speed ever was. Every city you've ever lived in has its own version of this system running right now. The highway that gets you to work, the cell towers that carry your calls, the supply routes that keep grocery shelves full 3 days after any storm. You've never had to think about which roads your town depends on until the day one of them closes, and you find out how much of your life was running through a single point you never noticed.